What are you doing with these people? How are you helping them move on to that next part of their life?
If you're willing to get started and you're willing to take action before you are ready, then you're going to begin to just transform into that version of yourself, and your worth is going to increase. Your bandwidth is going to increase. Your knowledge will increase the more that you're willing to put the time and the effort and the focus into it. And it's going to evolve over time. So in the beginning, I wasn't always this transformational strategist, right? I was like a mindset coach, or like, I barely had I was like, oh, coach, I barely had a name for myself. I was telling people, I know how to help you with this. And I was helping them with that. But now it's evolved where I understand psychology and the mind enough to where I can help people completely transform in that regard.
Welcome to the Land Life Podcast with your host, PJ Riley.
All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome to LandLife Podcast. My name is PJ Riley. Guys, if you're getting value from this podcast, make sure you leave 5 stars, leave a like, subscribe. Guys, if you're on iTunes or Spotify, do me a solid and leave a review. Just a one sentence, one-liner. Podcast was cool. I loved it. Your guest today, Jaymie, was awesome. Something like that. That's all I ask. Leave a quick review. Guys, if you're at the end of this podcast, our guest, Jaymie, will give you ways that you can contact her. So if what she says resonates with you throughout the course of this podcast, you're going to be able to communicate with her, to contact her. So stick around to the very end. Don't forget. One thing I want to say, I want to thank a couple people real quick. Kai and Bree Logue. They invited me out to their wholesale real estate conference last week. Had a chance to go out there and speak on stage. It was super awesome. They're really cool people. If you get a chance, check them out. Wholesale Real Estate Syndicate is the name of their company, and Bree and Kai Logue is their name one more time. So I think they're an RTA too. Jaymie, how's it going?
I'm amazing. How are you?
I am doing great. Jaymie Gerena, is that correct?
Crushed it.
Perfect. All right. So Jaymie, you're in New Jersey, correct?
I am about like 45 minutes outside of New York City.
Okay. And you're in RTA too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I'm a newbie, but I'm in
What's
it.
that?
I'm a newbie, but I'm in it.
You're a newbie. You're a newbie. So how do you like RTA so far, though?
It's amazing. I mean, the people so far have been really incredible, and it's just the deep conversations right off the bat. And I'm far from a surface level person. So getting right down into it is something that I really value, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, I feel like I get a lot of RTA people on the podcast just because they always have such good conversation. They always have like real cool businesses and interesting things to talk about. So it's always good to have the RTA folks on here. All right, guys, Jaymie is something different. Her business is definitely something different. She doesn't have a real estate company. I mean, maybe she does, but that's not what we're going to talk about. She's not doing any sort of social media marketing that I know of. This is totally different. Jaymie is an intuitive transformational strategist. And yes, I'm looking over here reading it because I've never said it before in my life. So an intuitive transformational strategist. Jaymie helps women overcome limitations to activate their potential, increase visibility, and use the power of their unique strengths. That's pretty cool. So Jaymie, kind of give us a background on you. What got you to the point where you became an intuitive transformational strategist? It's a very big word, a lot of big words. I'm not a very smart guy. So a lot of big words involved there. So yeah, give us a background on you and kind of what got you to the point we're at now.
It's funny. I always ask people, I'm like, how far back do you want me to go? Me to talk, because I am quite a talker. No, but really how all of that started and why being an intuitive transformational strategist is something that is so near and dear to my heart is because I believe that I had to go first. So for your listeners to get to know me and my story, I was raised by 2 drug-addicted, gang-affiliated parents. I was mentally, physically, sexually abused starting from the age of 2 up to the age of 13, until I decided to pretty much leave my home at 14 and just be completely on my own and figure out how to life. So I've been on my own ever since. But growing up in that dynamic, I saw a lot. I was raised in massive amounts of pain. And in our family, we were raised with this belief where what happens in the family stays in the family. I mean, I was raised very strong, rooted Puerto Rican family. So we're fiery, we're passionate people. And at the same time, what happens in the house stays in the house, and we don't talk about it outside of the house. And so growing up in that dynamic, I was forced to be smart. I was forced to be resilient. I was forced to be strong. And that served me up until it didn't. I was faced with trauma after trauma in my life, and finally got to the point where, after my dad had passed away due to drugs, and 2 years later found out that my little brother was murdered by a gang, I hit rock bottom. I was a mom to 2 kids at the time. Mom to one at the time. The second one was on the way. And I was just at this point in my marriage and in my life where I just couldn't keep pushing shit under the rug. I couldn't keep just saying I was fine and put a poker face on. I had to face reality. To be quite frank, my marriage was in the shitter. I was about to leave my relationship. I was so unhappy with myself. I mean, let's face it, right? If I was so unhappy with myself, there's no way that I could be happy with somebody else if I was completely unhappy with myself. And so I went to work. I dove into personal development. I read 16 books in a span of 3 months, completely decided to change my entire life. And I truly don't believe that, had it have not been for the circumstances that I've been dealt, I don't think that I would have associated enough pain to my life circumstances to change. And so when I was going through this transition of personal development, I remember I went to Google, and it brought me over to YouTube, and I stumbled on Tony Robbins, the big guy.
What?
Stumbled on Tony Robbins because I went to Google and I was like, how to be happy.
Yeah.
And it flooded my feed with articles and blogs and websites and trainings. And then there was a little thumbnail of Tony, and I clicked on that and I listened, and it was one of his intervention stories. And I fell in love. I fell in love with personal development. It completely took off from there. I was waking up listening to audios to rewire my subconscious mind. I went to bed with audios to rewire my subconscious mind because I knew that there was a lot to rewire. And so because of my passion and because of my love for personal development, it really is what started my business. I started sharing my story online and showing up, and people were interested in what I had to say. And so from there, I decided to make a business out of it.
Wow. Okay. So you decided to start making a business out of it. Now you have all the right thoughts in your brain, right? The ideas are there. You're a different person now. And now you want to give it to somebody else. So what does that very first client look like? Who was that person? And I mean, what did you do? Did you have an office building? Because now you have a business, right? So is it over the phone? What did that first client look like?
Yeah. Oh man. I couldn't remember the moment that this person signed up. She was one of my first clients. And let me just cut to the chase here. I lived in a very small apartment building. It was a loft. And so the upstairs is what I turned into my office. I had a little couch up there, and I had a little table, and I worked out of my loft. It was hot as hell because obviously in a loft, there was no AC up there. It was just so hot. But that's where I worked out of. And I was like, I'm going to figure this out. As a single mom at the time, both of my girls were 3 and 1 at the time. I was like, I can't afford childcare. I can't afford to send them somewhere at this point in time. I had $48 to my name. I didn't have a pot to piss in. I was a high school dropout. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going through a divorce. I have $48 to my name. I've got 2 children. I can't afford to send them somewhere. I can't get a job, because if I get a job, it's going to take all of my money if I'm paying for childcare too. So I've got to do this from home. And so when I first started, I didn't think a whole lot of myself in the beginning, right? But I had courage. I had belief enough in myself to take action. But I was charging people $197 a month. Can you believe that?
What a deal.
Seriously, they got to steal.
We need to up those numbers.
Oh my God. It was $197 a month. And I
didn't know any better, right? You didn't know it.
And I coached for 4 hours a month. Wasn't making a whole lot of money. But I did it. That's where I started. And I look back at it now and I feel so humbled and proud. At that point in time, that ideal client isn't the person that I would necessarily work with today, but they were perfect for that version of me. Yeah. And I believe that if you're willing to get started and you're willing to take action before you are ready, then you're going to begin to just transform into that version of yourself, and your worth is going to increase. Your bandwidth is going to increase. Your knowledge will increase the more that you're willing to put the time and the effort and the focus into it. And it's going to evolve over time. So in the beginning, I wasn't always this transformational strategist, right? I was like a mindset coach, or like, I barely had I was like a coach. I barely had a name for myself. I was telling people, I know how to help you with this. And I was helping them with that. But now it's evolved where I understand psychology and the mind enough to where I can help people completely transform in that regard.
Yeah. And it's funny you say, I like the word transformational. I believe one of the best things you can do is transition quickly. If your situation you're in currently isn't working, or let's say you come to the end of the line in something, like let's say you run a business, you run something, and it's at the end of that line. Like let's say you're an athlete, sports career is over. How do you transition to the next part of your life, right? Let's say you want to go into a business. Is it going to take you 5 years to decide what you want to do, or do you transition quickly, like really fast to get to that next place? I think those transitional periods are so long, and they can be wasted if you don't really have like a plan. So what is your plan? Somebody comes to you and they're like, I'm out of this. I need help. What are you doing with these people? How are you helping them move on to that next part of their life?
Yeah. So even when you talk about the athlete, I actually, I'm thinking about this in my mind and actually already planning it out in my mind. I'm like, okay, cool. How would I even begin to serve them? The number one thing that you do is look at their values. You see what's important to them in the context of career. You see what got them to where they are right now in their career and what drove them in their career. And we still utilize the values and transition them into another passion, because your purpose remains the same, right? Like your purpose remains the same. Just how you decide to live out your purpose is different.
Yeah.
And so you may take someone who has a very successful career in being an athlete, and let's say they get hurt, let's say they get injured and they can't do that anymore. Okay, cool. Let's take a look at your values. How can we still utilize your values, honor that, and just transition you while still using your purpose into a different avenue that still brings you that sense of fulfillment? Because if you're still in alignment with your values and you're still in alignment with your purpose, depending on your wants and needs and boundaries, you can achieve whatever it is that you want. Mm-hmm. And so we would do this mental map and figure out what lights that person up specifically. For me, I always tell my clients, when you come to me, there isn't just a copy and paste. That's not how this works. That's like saying you can copy my strategy and just place it on you and just, you're going to succeed. No, because that's not how it works. We have different operating systems. We have different sense of core values and needs. And so I always look at my clients and I'm like, transformation is so independent, depending on the individual. Mm-hmm. And we have to take your specific strategies that you already have in place now, use them or shift them depending on where you want to go, and then implement them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What are some some things you would tell somebody? I don't want to give away all the secrets, but what are some things like I come to you and what would be like an activity or something I could do that would help me move on to that next thing? Like, because I didn't know. That's why I'm asking. Because when I was transitioning from sports to business, I had no idea what to do. I had no idea where to go, or I honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. I thought all the guys that seemed to be doing really well in business, they wore a suit, had a briefcase, or went to an office with a laptop. I didn't carry that. I carried a gym bag with boxing gloves in it. And that does not translate well to anything in the business world, So what could I have done, like specifically? Is it writing strategies down? Like what could I have done to make it faster?
So I always tell my clients the number one thing to do is write down what you desire. Mm-hmm. So if you write down what you desire and then you get really fucking real with yourself and you write down where you are, you have to look at the gap. People are so uncomfortable that they aren't willing to look at the gap from where they are to where they desire to go because they're afraid of it. Yeah. But if you can look at the gap and you can say, okay, cool. The things that I've learned by being an athlete taught me what? Resilience, endurance, focus, right? It taught me how to be strong. It taught me how to push through even when I didn't want to. It taught me teamwork. And then you go down the list of things that it's taught you. Okay, cool. This is where I want to go. How can I use the strengths that I've learned over time to help me get there? And then looking at what don't I have right now that I need, that I know that I'm going to need to get there. That's where you got to start filling in the deficits. That's when you have to start bringing in a team. And for me, I didn't have money to bring in the team in the beginning. So I bartered a lot. I was willing to have someone come into my circle, not pay the $197 for free.
Oh, they get not even $197?
Didn't even let them pay $197 because it was bartering. Because I'm like, hey, you have this strength that I don't have. You come into my circle, I'll coach you, and then we'll figure this out together. And that's how I started. You have to be willing to hire in your deficits so that you can win.
Yeah.
And so I would tell you to look at the gap. And while you're looking at the gap, it's the opportunity to believe in the quantum shift. So many people are afraid to believe in the potentiality that they don't take action. But if you allow them to believe that it's possible, even when you don't see it physically, that's when the magic begins.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a different, like that quantum shift you said. And I've just recently heard about that. But I didn't believe in it. And I'm sure most people don't. Even when you see yourself at a high level in something, you never see yourself being able to go to a high level at something completely different. So that's super interesting. Okay, can you give us one of your success stories? Like something, you don't have to give names. Let's get off the topic of me and sports and business and all that nonsense. It's very selfish podcast. I get free. I just saved $197. I don't think you charge $197 anymore, but I think I'm going to say I saved that. Okay, so yeah, let's find a success story, something that like one of your clients that you're able to talk about. I mean, I don't want to pry too much into their lives, but something cool that happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's actually there's two in particular that I'd like to bring up. So one of them I've known for 15 years. So we actually went to middle school and high school together, and we were in completely different grades. We weren't close by any means. And I remember when I first started becoming an entrepreneur alongside of desiring to be a coach, I started in network marketing. Nice. And I was 2 levels away from the top of the company. I did it in, I believe, 3 months at the time. And I was like, I'm going to bring in money. I mean, this is the fastest way to make money right now. So we're going to figure this out. And I remember trying to poach her. I found her on social media. And I remember trying to poach her. And I was like, hey, you should join me in network marketing. And she was like, no, ma'am, and ignored me for years. And I just forgot about her. I just, let time pass. And I was really leaning into my coaching business, and I was crushing it with that, seeing some really great wins. And she came out of the woodwork and was like, hey, I've been watching you and I want to pay for your coaching. So she ended up joining, and her vision was to make $1,000. Like, I think she's like, I want to make $1,000 within the next 6 months. Like, that's how small the vision was for her at the time. Yeah. She was a paralegal at the time, and then finally decided to go all in. So she's no longer a paralegal, was able to quit that job, make the same amount of money in her own business, working full-time, completely left that other job and went full force. Now she makes obviously more money as an entrepreneur, but she now works for herself fully, but she has clients who are now featured in like the Grammys.
Wow. No kidding.
And she also is a child who overcame a lot of trauma in her life. And so here we are, children who are from trauma where they say, you're never going to succeed. You're never going to win. The odds are against you. And no, you have to decide that that's no longer my story. So the moment you change your story, you change your life. Another one of my clients came in, decided to start her entrepreneurship business. She was in graphic design, came in, was about to lose her business because business wasn't going well at the time, came in, now she's surpassing like $30,000 months. And so it's just the small shifts. It's the small shifts. It's the stories that you're telling yourself. It's the beliefs that are in your heart. It's a generational shit that you've heard your entire life that you have to take ownership of and begin to peel the onion back, like the layers of the onion, and really decide if that's a story worth keeping.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick then. The generational stories you've been told yourself. Because, I mean, I didn't come from a family with money, right? What's the term that you get as a child every time you say, "Can we get that?" We can't
Money doesn't grow
afford it.
on trees.
Money doesn't grow on trees. We can't afford it.
My
Right?
mom when I win the lotto. Homegirl never played the lotto.
Exactly. That was the financial strategy for us too, but we never played the lottery. So very strange. But there's so many like that, right? There's so many things like that. Oh, I can't lose weight. We're big boned. That's just how we are. It's our family. Just how we are. But let's stick to the money doesn't grow on trees. How do you, because no matter how much you want to not think that, it always comes back maybe subtly into your mind. How do you help people to get that out of their mind to where it doesn't automatically come back? Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yep. So I use a tool, and one of these tools allow us to get to the root cause of where you first heard that. Because it's been so embedded in us generationally, and there's not many parents who are raising their children around abundance mentality, especially when it comes to money. Yeah. It is something that is at this point societal beliefs. So it's beyond generational, and it is like everywhere, right? Yeah. And so something like money, people truly have to believe and get to this point where they believe that it truly is an energetic exchange. I'm going to share a personal story with you so that you understand what I mean by this. I came from nothing, absolutely nothing. My entire family was on welfare. I was raised with nothing. There was months and seasons during the winter where we wouldn't even have heat. So we'd have to open the oven and turn it on and get heat in the house that way. Yeah. We had nothing growing up.
In New Jersey too, by the way, right?
This was Connecticut.
Oh, even colder.
It was not fun. And so here I am with all of these money beliefs, a starving single mother, barely making it by with no money because I didn't have a job and I was just figuring out how to be an entrepreneur, whatever that meant at the time, to being able to bring in $77,000 in 6 weeks for my business, my own personal coaching business. Now, for some, that's not a lot of money. Now, for some others, that is a lot of money. That is more money than people make in a year, right? How did I get to that point? What did it take for me to get to that point? To where now I sit here and I'm like, oh, that's not a problem. Money is just money. I believe that what I put out, I will receive, right? And so the process that I take my clients through is getting to the root cause of that belief, who they heard it from, when they heard it, the emotions that they felt when they heard it. And it's so funny because there's moments where it's like, I wanted to buy a toy at Walmart and my mom said no. In that moment, I believe that I couldn't have what I wanted. I believe that money, I couldn't buy things with money, right? Like whatever the belief was for that child at that time. Now we rewrite the story. We go in and we actually scratch the CD of the mind. So if I were to tell you to close your eyes and think about money, you would have something called an internal representation of money. You would be able to actually see a picture in your mind of that. For the longest time, I saw my life conditions. I saw my broken down house. I saw like just being poor, right? And so my IR to money was not that of abundance. We begin to change the internal representation of what money means to you, beginning to change the meaning. Because some people may have something called a part. It's parts integration. So a part of them wants money, but a part of them doesn't feel like they deserve money. And so when we have both of these parts colliding, it's very hard to take this belief with this belief on the journey. Do you see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yep.
If we can change the beliefs and we can change our internal representation and the emotions in our body that arise when we think about money, we have a better opportunity of succeeding and making that money. So get to the core of it, get to the root cause, begin the process of changing the beliefs by changing your physiology, changing your focus, and changing the wording that you're using around what you're buying. Okay. So even when I go to the store and I see that something is quote unquote expensive, I don't say that it's expensive. I say it's not a priority yet. Okay. Like this for me isn't this for me isn't a priority in my life right now. I do not need this right now. Do I desire it in the future? Yeah, but I don't need it right now. So we don't need to get it, right? So being able to get to a point where you are consciously shifting your emotional code to that of which you desire. You have to believe that you deserve it before you get it. You have to believe that it is yours before you get it. You have to believe that you are on the right path before you see it in fruition.
So you're a parent. You're telling how do your children, this is maybe it's off topic, I don't know. How are your children reacting to this is not a priority yet? Like, how are you conveying that to kids? Because that's the big one right there, right? Like, you were the kid at one point, and it was we can't afford it. We don't have enough money. And it impacted you in a certain way. How are you conveying it to your kids now?
Yeah, we teach them the value of a dollar.
Mm-hmm.
So my kids actually don't ask us for a lot because they are required to work for what they get. And so there obviously are times like where we buy them things and they enjoy it and it's wonderful. And we still teach them the importance of money. And so with that, they get an allowance by doing the list of their chores and making sure their attitude is in the right place. And by doing so, they put in the sweat equity to understand what it takes to make a dollar. And so they actually have a value behind the money that they receive. And so when they go to the store and they're looking at their money in their hand and they're looking at what they want to buy, they too are asking themselves, is this a priority right now? Like,
it's their money. It's not your money now.
So you put them in the driver's seat of the situation.
Yeah.
They believe like, okay, this is my money. Is this actually worth the $10 that this little crappy toy is going to get me? I don't think so. So it's not a priority right now.
That's awesome. That is cool. All right. So I kind of want to shift gears just a little bit. Okay. We need to talk about the business of being an intuitive transformational strategist. Like, it is a business. This is what you do. This brings you money. So as far as the actual business goes, what type of team is needed to structure something like this? Like, you're out of the loft now. You're out of the old, what was it, New Jersey loft or Connecticut loft? Either way.
In Virginia.
It was in Virginia. Okay, either way, it's somewhere back east. So you're out of the loft now. Now you're starting to build a team. We need to build our actual business. What does the business of this look like?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different departments, but people hear that and they're like, oh my gosh, she's got like 50 employees. No, I don't believe that you need a massive team right off the bat. So I don't want people to get into this ideology that they have to right away hire this big ass team, because they also have to realize that if you can cut the overhead and make sure that the money is staying within the business, you're solid. And so for me, what I did was I hired an operations person to be able to help me with managing everything in terms of operations. And I hired someone to support me in social media. Now, the social media person is the one who is supporting me in the DMs, who's setting up the conversations for potential sales calls, who's helping me to make sure that those who are already my clients are being taken care of in email and things like that. And so I have those two. Then plus I do have those who like help me in marketing in a different area, but they're not full on. So the two people that I have full on is my operations and it is my my social media sales department. That's it for right now. And then obviously like legal, but those are people that, I don't need 24/7.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
yeah. Accountants, things like that.
Right. And then like, yeah, exactly. So in that regard, I don't believe that you need a big team to even build up to $1 to $2 million a year.
Yeah.
Some people are like, you need a big team or you need like 7 people with you right off the bat. No.
You know, giant office. Okay. So how are you getting clients then? And I'll ask that, I'll have a follow-up question, like how important is your branding on social media? But initially, how are you getting clients?
So honestly, it all started off through social media. So when I started sharing my business, I did it through Facebook and then I expanded over into Instagram. Now, by those 2 social media platforms, I've been able to build a business with that. But because of that, it turned into referrals. So for 2 years, I barely posted online and I based my entire business off of referrals. Now we are expanding even more. And the desire is to get even bigger and greater, to impact more people and to continue to change the world. So I had to continue to show up in that regard, right? This isn't small business anymore. We're getting to a bigger business and we're looking to expand because the mission's more important. The impact's important. And so because of that, we're showing up on social media even greater. But now we've gotten to the point where we are actually talking to like corporate businesses to be able to share these teachings and lessons with people. Because even when you're thinking about big corporations, the people who are working in those positions are everyday people too. And everyday people struggle.
Yeah.
I truly do believe that how you show up in your business is oftentimes impacted by the personal stuff that comes up. And so if we can get to the root cause of the personal beliefs that you pour over into business and or your career, we can shift that so you are feeling abundant in your personal life and feeling abundant in your business as a byproduct.
Cool. So
yeah, we expand over into speaking engagements that are local, et cetera.
Okay, so you are able to speak you are doing speaking as well.
Yeah, continuing to expand into that for sure.
Okay. Now, so sorry. As far as branding yourself, though, branding yourself online, how important is that? I can imagine this is a big part of your strategy, but maybe you can elaborate on that.
If this was a couple of years ago, I would say that it wasn't that important. Like I would say, like the branding, the logos, and all of that isn't that important. But in today's day and age, it is. It really is. How you show up is a representation of you, right, in your business. And so if you aren't showing up for the part, you might not get the role.
Yeah.
So you've got to be willing to.
That was good.
So you've got things.
I liked it. That was pretty. I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna use that.
So you've got to be willing to show up. And so if you're showing up inconsistently, I actually shared this today. If you're showing up inconsistently, then people aren't going to want to model you. And if they don't desire to model you, then you don't really have a business, right? Like they want to work with people that they know, like, and trust. If you aren't consistent, then they don't really know you, like you, or trust you. And so being consistent on social media is number one, but then how you are showing up is also important. Are you showing up? Are you showing up as someone who goes on social just to talk crap and complain? Or are you going up on social and showing up to deliver value and information that someone can take and be inspired by, be entertained by, or learn something by? So if you can learn to utilize those three areas of life and then show people how you're impacting, you're going to have a better success chance on social media.
Yeah. I think it's you're building a portfolio basically of yourself online, so that you're going to be doing business with people and you've met them through the internet, right? So what do they see when they go to search you? Because everybody who does business with you is going to immediately Facebook search you, Google search you, Instagram. They want to find out who you are, look you up on YouTube. So what kind of person are you out there? Are you out there drinking, partying, having a good time? I'm not saying that's not right or that's wrong. But if that's, just know those people searching for you when they're trying to do business with you, they will be seeing all those things too. So
it'll be an instant yes or no. Yeah.
You got to be kind of careful with what you put online. If you're like super political, like I just had this conversation with another RT guy too. If you're super political, perfectly fine if that's your thing. Just know you will have to, there will be repercussions at some point, whether you care or not, they will be there. So you may not care. Okay, fine. You still have your views, but that's coming out no matter what. Right.
And I tell my clients that, like, depending on how you desire to show up on your social media, show up as yourself, but you don't have to consistently be confrontational. Like It doesn't need to be this field of negative energy on your social media because you are so gung-ho about standing for what is right in blank area. I'm all for that. But then don't complain at why you aren't succeeding in what you want to do when all you're doing is being negative. You may not think it's coming off that way, but people feel that right away. They feel if you're angry and writing a post. Like you can feel that. You can feel when you're inspirational and inspired and you're writing a post and someone reads it. They feel that energetic exchange. And so a lot of the time, if you're not converting in your messaging or your storyline or in your business when it comes to your social media, one, check your energy. Two, check the intention of what you're sharing. is there a point to what you're sharing, or are you just trying to complain to complain?
Ranting.
You just ranting and raving. Like, sometimes I post things to be funny. I just recently posted a photo of my daughter who is hashtag team weird because she's one of the strange ones. I am too.
I
So
understand.
she sent it to me, and it's her making a goofy face. And I posted it. I'm like, if you know me, you know this is my kid. That doesn't have a whole lot to share in terms of inspiration, but it's a part and like a little sneak peek into my life, and that's lighthearted.
Yeah.
And it's something that someone can wake up to and they can laugh about it, right?
Absolutely.
So it doesn't need to constantly be info, training. It could be you sprinkled into your message.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, absolutely. You want to be strategic about what you're putting online.
Yeah.
You don't want to throw out 1,000 different political posts or anything, any negative post that was polarizing, right? That's imagine if you were doing that right now, you're cutting out half of your clients, right?
Right.
Whether you believe it or not, I guess it's up to you, but cutting out half your clients is just not a smart business move.
Yeah. Yep. Now there are some posts that people aren't going to like, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 1,000% okay with that.
Yeah.
Because there's also going to come a point where my ideal client will like that about me. Mm-hmm. I actually posted one last night that was a little bit risque in that. And I had someone message me and they were like, do you speak to your children with that? And they like blocked me before I could respond. And I was like, I love this. I love this because I'm weeding out those who I don't desire to work with. Mm-hmm. And those who read it and liked it, they had the best time responding and commenting on it. And I'm cool with that. But I need people in my circle who get the energy, who are willing to laugh and have a good time, and who take things with a grain of salt, who aren't so freaking negative.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about your kids a lot. How much do your kids drive your business life, especially coming from where you came from? I'm assuming your kids have a significantly different life than you did growing up. How much does that drive you?
Oh, in the beginning, it was everything. It was my only driver. So it was my beliefs at the time were do this for the kids and make enough to get by. Now my values have shifted, and now it's do this to leave a family legacy and impact the world. Now the values are different. Now I have this vision of my children coming in eventually and being able to expand the business in whatever capacity that may mean for them if they desire to do so. But they're my driver. They're the reason why I wake up every day and I continue to push on, because I didn't have the childhood that I had wanted. And, you hear so many people say, well, I'm giving my kids what I never had. Yeah. I don't necessarily do that. I give my kids more than that in terms of up here. People think of that and they think of it as like money or things or items, vacations or things like that. I give my kids the mental lessons that you need in life to not live life like I don't even have the word for that right now, but live below your means, essentially.
Yeah, well, what you said was that's very true, and the financial thing that you tell your kids too. Is it worth it, right? I was reading a story about generational wealth, and where generational wealth fails is when the previous generation just gives items, gives gifts, things. Yeah. So the younger generation never knows what to do. They never have a clue what to do, right? Yeah. But what you're doing will build the generation so that the next generation can build on top of what you built versus just bleeding it dry until it's over.
Right. Yeah. We're not doing this whole take mentality anymore. Mm-hmm. You've got to learn the importance of building it yourself. Like even when my kids, something as simple as like, how do I spell this word? I'm like, how do you think you spell it? Like, it's something like that. It's like, well, how would you spell it? Well, I would spell it like this. Okay, cool. You're close. It's like, close. This is how you actually spell it. And this is what you have to transition. Here's a strategy on how to spell it the right way the next time.
Yeah.
Like you don't just give it. Every time you give it, you actually keep them from using their resources.
Absolutely.
Our job as a parent is to teach our children resourcefulness, not just give them the resources. If we just give them the resources, you give them the cake without teaching them how to bake it. They don't know how to do that the next time.
Exactly. When you're not there. When you're not there, what happens when you're not there to give them the answer? What do? They just get it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good stuff right there. You're going to be a generational, the Gerenas. That's how you say it, right? We're going to be it's going to be a generation we remember. So
Yeah.
that's cool. All right, Jaymie, how do people get hold of you if they want to contact you, if they want to follow up with you? How do people do that?
Yeah. So you can find me on my website, JaymieGerena.com. It is JaymieGerena.com.
So
And
difficult.
yeah, I know.
So
I'm sorry.
confusing. You threw a wrench in the game there.
I know. It's not JAMIE. Nope. We're going to ruin everything for you really quick. Same thing on Facebook and Instagram too.
Awesome. Jaymie, here's the big question I ask at the end of every podcast. It's a big one. I know you're a real smart person. You have a great business name, and all these things are going really well for you. But there's the big question. I buy and sell land all over the country. Jaymie, if you could buy land anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Oh man, there's a couple of places that I'd like to buy just simply for pleasure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if I'm thinking generational for myself and my family, this might not be
Here
the
we
best
go.
strategy for you in terms of return on investment, but I probably would buy a home in Puerto Rico because a lot of the value there, because of all of the tropical storms that have happened, it's really cheap to buy housing there right now.
Nice.
And it's really cheap to buy housing right on the water. And so we own a property there that was passed down to me through my dad. But I'd like to get something on the water for my family.
Puerto Rico it is. I actually might start looking now because I know my wife wants waterfront property all the time. And I'm like, man.
They're cheap right now.
Yeah, really? Nice. Well, I'm going to go check that out actually once we're done here. Right on, Jaymie. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending the time with us and hanging out and talking about something that honestly nobody has ever talked about on this podcast, not even close. So it's super interesting. And yeah, thanks for being on.
EJ, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
All right, guys. Till next time, I'll see you on LandLife.